Well, now look what we have here. It has been quite some time since 2002, and I'm starting to feel like a broken record player, but it is true. Today we'll be talking about another bunny that got lost on their all-day 2002 honey. Why don't y'all come with me? Now, 17 years have passed since I last wet my bed, and back then, there were only 3 things I really cared about. The next SpongeBob SquarePants episode, rewatching Lilo and Stitch for the 30th time, and making sure I stopped wetting my bed. You see, as I already said in my last video, many amazing things came out in 2002. And in the world of video games, we weren't disappointed either. Back then, we got a first Metroid Prime, Lilo and Stitch Trouble in Paradise, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, Super Mario Sunshine, Star Wars Jedi Outcast, GTA Vice City, Ratchet & Clank, Eternal Darkness, and obviously also today's topic, a little game called Kingdom Hearts. Damn, what a year that was. Kingdom Hearts brought with it a new take on a JRPG genre for the PlayStation 2. But since I was so stuck up with watching Disney, I just completely missed out on this game. Ever since then, I always eyeballed the series from a safe distance. And then, the day came where the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer came out, and I was immediately sold. I mean, just take a look. You can play with Stitch! Now, I couldn't just buy Kingdom Hearts 3 and play through it. No. You see, I have an issue where I just can't play or watch the sequel of a movie or a game without having experienced its predecessor. So I went back and played the first Kingdom Hearts game that came out all those years back. So, if you have also been eyeballing the series for some time now, but never knew whether or not it was worth getting into, this video will hopefully clear all your doubts, and don't worry, there will be no childish bias in this video. As I said, I did not grow up with these games, and there are no nostalgia strings on me. So, there are many different ways to get into Kingdom Hearts. You can read the manga, read the novels, if you want to be all the way in there, play the VR game, play the mobile game, and heck, if you'd like to, you can even buy and play the card game. But the best way to get into the series is by starting, well, where the series also started. You see, in 2002, Square Enix released Kingdom Hearts for the PlayStation 2. For everyone unfamiliar with the studio, they are the same people that brought out the Final Fantasy games, Chrono Trigger, The Secret of Mana, The World Ends With You, Nier Automata, the Dragon Quest games, Octopath Traveler, and even the Super Mario RPG game. So yeah, they know a little about games, to say the least. Kingdom Hearts got everyone confused back then, and to be honest, it still does. I mean, seeing Goofy run around with Reap Boys really is a hard pill to swallow. You think Infinity War or Who Framed Roger Rabbit were some big crossovers? Or hey, maybe you are as simple as me and are happy with small but significant crossovers, just like those Lilo and Stitch episodes in which they crossed over with Recess, American Dragon, and Kim Possible. Well, Kingdom Hearts takes all these crossovers and puts them to shame with an original plot. You start out as a 14-year-old boy with anime hair named Sora. He lives with his family and his best friends on an island, but lately he's been having some weird dreams. And then one night, a huge storm and an army of heartless monsters attack the island. Throughout this night, many things happen, and by the end of it, Sora gets separated from his friends by evil dark magic and wakes up again in Traverse Town. And from this point on, you meet Donald and Goofy and band together to find King Mickey and Sora's friends. And I'm talking about Riku and Kairi here, because really, who cares about these guys? With Donald and Goofy, you get to visit many different Disney worlds, from Agrabah to Wonderland to many more. These worlds used to be separated, but the dark forces now combine the worlds and plague them. And the main foes that you'll be facing are called Heartless, and they come in a variety of shapes and sizes. But your journey with this game has a whole lot more to offer, and you can be sure that throughout your playthrough, you'll encounter a lot of tripping, deep personal questions, feminists, Final Fantasy characters, the devil himself, speech disorders, existential crisis.
Is any of this for real or not?
Cringe, awkward love triangles, feet cancer, bipolar personalities, the girl, Stitch. Yes, he's in the game as well. Kawaii's over 9,000. And you also have, okay, that's a thing. Now, to be completely honest, the story feels a little slow at first, especially if you are waiting to finally meet the magical Disney characters and worlds. So, when you first play the game, I would give it around 2 to 3 hours or at least until you left Traverse Town to let the story really pick up. Because after that point, the story gets really engaging, and it will take you all the way back to your childhood. And really, it's also not surprising. The story is a mashup of a classic and magical Disney movie with Final Fantasy art style and shonen anime plot twists. And the weird thing is that it somehow actually works fantastically good altogether. Because being able to visit the Disney worlds you always wanted to be in takes you right back to your bad wedding days in an instance, no matter how old you are. And by giving you a Keyblade, the game manages to keep it safe for children, but engaging enough for adults to have fun in the combat as well. Kingdom Hearts Combat is a perfect example of a system that is easy to learn, but hard to master. At first, all you'll be doing is pressing X to stay alive. And yes, in this game, you attack with X and jump with circle. It sounds weird, and it is weird, but don't worry, you get used to it once you beat the final boss. But while progressing through the story, the game starts to throw many different new combat mechanics at you. From spells, to combo attacks, to special attacks, to summons, and the good thing is that the combat is as engaging as you want it to be. If you want to use all the different spells, summons, and special attacks, the game will reward you for it. But if you'd rather just button mash X until the end, hey, you do you. It'll be more challenging, but it's definitely possible. Now, the art style in this game is breathtakingly beautiful, especially for a 2002 game. There are even a few fully 3D rendered anime-inspired animations just like these ones.
You walk away, you don't hear me say, please, oh baby, don't simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight. It's hard to let it go.
The rest of the game is not in this art style though. It's a lot more Disney inspired and very kawaii. There is a magical feel to all the worlds, including the ones that are not from Disney. For example, Traverse Town. It is the first world you visit after leaving the island, and it is an original Kingdom Hearts location. At first, I was really disappointed that this was the first location because, to be honest, when I first booted up the game, I was only there for the good old Disney stuff. But after finishing the game, I had to admit that Traverse Town was my favorite world. And not because the Disney worlds were bad, but because Traverse Town was full of people from Final Fantasy characters to Disney characters to original ones. And it kind of became a little home to which I could always go back to after every Disney world I discovered. And exploring those worlds felt so magical, and the gameplay definitely helped out there. While running and jumping around the Disney worlds, you are not forced to go down a linear path. There are many different areas to explore and hidden treasures to be found. But I have to admit that the worlds seem very empty at times, other than the many Heartless you'll encounter. But considering that the Heartless are the ones that took over, it makes sense that the streets are this empty. And the lack of NPCs is greatly compensated by the amount of detail that was put into the surroundings, especially again, for a game that came out 17 years ago. The gameplay is very fluid, and the game gradually gives you more stuff to do and more ways to discover the area. Throughout my whole playthrough, right up to the end, I was given new ways to traverse through the map. From a high jump to a dodge roll to many more mechanics that I'd rather not spoil. Now there is one part of Kingdom Hearts gameplay that is very hard to get behind. The gummy ship. Now look, it's a very small portion of the game, and if you're a fan of Space Invaders and always wonder what it would be like to play it in 3D, you might actually enjoy it right from the start. And the gummy ship missions are only there to traverse through the worlds, but once you open up the way once, you never have to play through the mission again. And I also have to admit that even though it does feel unnecessary and boring at times, the game gives you many optimization options for your gummy ship. And yes, the ship is called Gummy Ship. Now, you don't have to change any of the ship's part to get through a gummy mission, and the HUD and controls of the Gummy Garage are very confusing. But if you actually invest some time into this mechanic, you can make the gummy ship portions a lot more fun. I'm invincible! Oh shit!
Language.
And once you get used to controls in the Gummy Garage, it also gets strangely addicting. But I'm gonna stop now to try and sweet talk this mechanic. It's pretty bad and boring, but it's thankfully just a small part of the whole game. Now, there's one thing though that never disappoints in this game, and that's the music. Kingdom Hearts has magical and mesmerizing tracks, from emotional piano covers to happy and upbeat tracks. Every world has its own dedicated tracks and they all fit the surroundings very well. And if you're wondering what the soundtracks are that I use in my videos, yes, the majority of them are from this or other games in the series. But even though the music in this game is consistently good, the tone isn't. This is not necessarily a bad feature, but it's definitely hard to get used to sliding around trees with Tarzan in one moment and then the next moment to defeat huge anime bad guys with the key. That is also a sword. That at the same time is not a sword. Yeah, it's weird, I know. And this inconsistency can make it even harder to find your way to progress through the story, mainly because the game lacks any real mission or objective list. So the internet is your friend. So, I played this game for the first time about 6 months ago. At first, the game started off very slow and very weird, and I was even starting to feel that I might not enjoy it. But then I gave it some more time, and I fell in love with it. Now, it's obviously not a perfect game, but you get to forget the flaws it has because of everything it does right and everything it succeeds to pull off. So, is Kingdom Hearts still worth playing in 2019? I would say that it is more worth now than it ever was, even more than when it came out. The game and its sequels now have HD remakes that make the games even more beautiful, and the series is now also very easy to follow. You see, there's a huge misconception that the Kingdom Hearts storyline is a huge cluster-dump, but it's actually very easy to follow. There are just many things to remember. This misconception most likely comes from having the Kingdom Hearts story spread out onto 6 different platforms. So if you wanted to experience the full story, you had to be ready to spend some good old money. But thankfully, you can now buy Kingdom Hearts The Story So Far on the PlayStation 4 for $39.99, which include all the Kingdom Hearts games in one disc in their HD glory. The only game that isn't on this disc is Kingdom Hearts 3, since that one wasn't out yet at that point. So yes, I think that if you are a fan of Final Fantasy, Disney, JRPGs, regular RPGs, anime, or just a good and goofy story, you will be in for a treat. Now, to be clear, Kingdom Hearts is a great game, but there's a lot more content than just the first game. In total, there are 13 games, including Kingdom Hearts 3, and many of them are very good, but if you think you don't have the time to go through all of them, solely playing through the first game is an experience to behold on its own. It's a fun game that will take you around 25 hours to complete, and that will launch you back to your childhood in a heartbeat. It is very whimsical and childish, but in a positive way. Just seeing how Sora runs and jumps looks so goofy, and at first, I cringed at it because it just looks so wrong. I mean, who jumps like that? That's just not normal. But by the end of the game, I really embraced it and started liking it because it is different and brought me back to a time where I wouldn't care about how someone jumps. And this is a lesson that this game represents beautifully. Just because something is out of order doesn't mean it's bad or that it should be looked down upon. And what I also love about this game is that it also teaches you to be a little careless again with the things that don't actually matter. It's definitely a game that will feel very strange at first, but once you let it into your heart and get the heartless out of you, you really start loving it. Have fun playing the game.
To see through you, I can. To subscribe to my channel, you want. To like the video, you will, young Padawan. To defeat the YouTube algorithm, strong enough, I am not. Together, grow we must. Together succeed, we shall. Much to learn, we still have. Farewell, young Padawan.